Ladies and gentlemen, finally, this show is back again. Welcome back to another edition of Footy Fridays here on RBTV. Second time we're trying to film this because the first time, tried to film it like a couple hours ago, and the Wi-Fi cut out in like 10 minutes in. So hopefully we don't have that happen again. The very good chance that does happen again. But what are we talking about today? As you see in the title of today's video, we're talking international ball once again. We're at the June window, the beginning of the off season for pretty much every league in the world. And at the beginning of June, before the big tournaments, the Gold Cup and the Club World Cup, which we're going to be hosting some live streams, some watch alongs for on this channel. More to come on that next week. In either the Robbie Basil show, which should be back next week. I didn't do it this week because of my first game out with Morris Elite, which shout out to everyone who tuned into that. Brief summary of that. The game itself was a great game. I mean, 2 stoppage time goals. It was chaos, but I'll be honest, that wasn't the best broadcast for me. But hey, we go back at it tomorrow. Actually, no, links will not be down here, but make sure to check out Morris Elite on Sports Engine and likely on either Big State Sports YouTube or Morris Elite YouTube. I don't know. Or you check my Instagram because I'll have the links to both games in my Instagram story tomorrow. First game at 3:30, second game at 6:30 should be fun. It might be raining too, which might make that like ever more chaotic, but yeah, should be fun. But today we're not focusing on Morris Elite, even though next week we could be like briefly bringing up Morris Elite if because the women's team is currently like top of the league, which big ups to that. The men's team's like 6th, which is totally fine. But what are we here to talk about? We are talking international ball today. And I know we were supposed to talk about the Champions League final on Tuesday, and that's actually where we're starting on. We're going to briefly go over the Champions League final in like 60 seconds because that's how much you should care about that final. PSG, Inter, what happened? PSG dominated from the second the ball was kicked up. The ball was kicked, and that's all you need to know. PSG goes out and wins 5-0 in the UEFA Champions League final, a game that they dominated from start to finish. They deserve to win. You go from Desiree Doué, who looked like a complete baller, was making the left back for Inter look like a fool. It was miraculous. It was everything I hoped for. Where PSG dominated, and as an Arsenal fan, it made me feel a little bit better about myself that we only lost by like 1 goal on aggregate, 2 goals. I don't remember what it was, but Arsenal did lose in the Champions League semifinals to Paris Saint-Germain or whatever round it was, and then PSG goes out into the final, wins 5-0 against Inter, one of the best clubs in the world. And they, like I said, dominated from start to finish. PSG were completely dominant all Saturday afternoon from last week, and they deserve to win it. They go out and they win their first ever Champions League. So the memes of PSG winning nothing are dead. Inter completely bottled it. They're a mess because their coach left. So yeah, Inter are in a very perplexing situation because they just went out and lost the Champions League final and lost their coach to Saudi. So madness is about to ensue in terms of Inter and what's going on with Inter. So Inter Milan, very weird spot. For PSG, got to give them their flowers after destroying whatever life that Inter had to begin with. It was complete and utter domination. They're a young team to watch out for. A team that lost Kylian Mbappe last year. In the summer. Last summer, we were talking about Kylian Mbappe leaving Paris Saint-Germain for free. They then go out and win the Champions League final, which is awesome. It's like, I'm here for that. Yes, give me more weird stuff. Like PSG doing something. I'm here for that. Like PSG being the best club in Europe. I don't hate the storyline. It's something different. It's PSG not bottling it. Good. I like that PSG didn't bottle it. It would be cool to possibly have seen Inter win it again. But what PSG really did was complete the storyline of different teams winning the freaking European trophies. We had Chelsea, who walked through the Conference League, were trailing in the Conference League final, and they eventually won it. They're going to the Champions League next year, by the way. You had Tottenham, sorry about that, guys, who we're going to talk about later in the next segment. Tottenham won the Europa League despite finishing 17th in the Prem. And then you had PSG win the Champions League for their first ever European trophy. It's Tottenham's first ever trophy in general in 17 years. So it was a bit of something different than we're used to see out of, a European year. But quick summary, what are my thoughts on the Champions League as a whole? Champions League this year was excellent. I was really hesitant on the league format, and I kind of rock with it, honestly. It opens the door up to a lot of newer teams, and these newer teams that you wouldn't expect to be here actually were pretty decent. Brest, of course, the eternal meme, were excellent. They're one of the biggest stories of the year. And you had a couple other clubs that just caused problems. I'm all for that. We'll see some new, possibly different teams. I know Basel will be in the hunt for Champions League. They're going to go through the Champions League qualifier. So we'll have to wait to see who qualifies for the next Champions League, the full list of who qualifies, probably for a few months. But in that time, we actually had some breaking news today. Tottenham, Europa League champion Tottenham, with Ange Postecoglou. Wait, what did you say? They sacked Ange? What? Yeah, you heard that right. Tottenham have sacked Ange Postecoglou. Just weeks after winning the Europa League final for their first trophy, almost since the year I was born, Tottenham sacked their coach. Probably because they finished 17th, which, okay, you finished 17th but won a European trophy. Everyone was clowning Arsenal because they finished second but didn't win a trophy. And people are saying Tottenham had a better season, finishing 17th in the Prem and going to the Champions League. So both are going to the Champions League, and one team finished with a trophy, even though they finished 17th. But then one team still has a manager and one team doesn't. Or so you would think. Well, they fired him this morning. They actually have their new manager from the looks of it. It was revealed just before the show went out, started tonight. But yeah, it was a little bit shocking, but not surprising at the same time for me. I'm going through Europa League where you really didn't have to beat anyone. It was the Europa League this year. Who did they beat? Let's go. This is why I like live streaming. Europa League. What was the path for Tottenham? We're going to look through Tottenham's path. And by the way, next week I should be able to find a way to screen share. I just haven't looked into it enough. So, yeah, I am a noob with OBS still. I know, concerning. But the Europa League, the playoff, this is the qualifiers. I'm stupid, This is the wrong thing. We have the league fate, the whole thing from last year. And we're looking at the knockouts. Tottenham started playing AZ Alkmaar, which they went behind against AZ on the first leg, but they then won the second leg 3-2. They beat Eintracht Frankfurt, which is fully respectable. Then they beat Bodo Glimt from Norway after going behind against Bodo Glimt. I believe at one point they won 5-1, and then they beat United in the final. By the way, Manchester United's path wasn't easy either. They faced Sociedad, Lyon, Bilbao, and then Tottenham. Literally, a lot of clubs had an opportunity to do this, but it was Tottenham who won the Europa League, and then they sacked their coach. Their new coach is going to be Thomas Frank from Brentford, which honestly isn't a bad consolation prize. Thomas Frank's a fairly respectable manager who took a bad Brentford team. They were not supposed to be very good to top 10 multiple times. So I'm interested to see what Thomas Frank does. But for Ange Postecoglou, I kind of feel bad for him because, the hype around his third season, everyone was hyping him up for it, and he doesn't even get to see the third season. So hopefully he finds management soon. I think there could be multiple clubs that go in for him. Not Australia. We'll talk about why, because they pulled off something miraculous yesterday when this stream goes out. But let's start. We're going to go back to UEFA later because there's something we have to talk about. and I've been waiting to talk about it for like a month, and I cannot wait to finally talk about it. It's World Cup qualifying, finally back, and we had some total BS off the rip, and there's a little bit more of it right now when we're doing this stream. It started a couple days ago, and we're gonna begin with the greatest one of them all, CONCACAF. Yes, we're starting out of order this week, but guess what? I don't give a crap. We're going to CONCACAF, and we're going to begin with CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. How it works, there are, I can do math, 6 groups of 5 teams in the second round. You have to finish top 2 to go to the third round, which then you have to win your group in the third round to go to the World Cup. Makes sense? Love it. In Group A, we have Honduras, Cuba, the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and Antigua and Barbuda. The storyline going into this window was Honduras should qualify. You know, they're on 6 points. They beat up on Cuba and Bermuda already. They have to play the Cayman Islands, who also at this point had a chance to make it to the next round, and Antigua and Barbuda, who have 1 point through the whole thing. Well, it started off on the 4th with Bermuda beating the Cayman Islands 5-0. I did not stutter. That was a result. Bermuda beat the Cayman Islands 5-0, which then put Bermuda for like a day in second on 4 points because they went out, they drew Antigua and Barbuda, they beat Cuba and lost to Honduras. Yeah, that weird qualifying, I know. So then Bermuda were in second, but so Cuba had to do something. And earlier this afternoon, they took on Antigua and Barbuda on the road in a city called Pigots. Pigots, I don't know where this is. It's in Antigua, not Barbuda, in Antigua. And the game was level for the majority of the first half. We went to stoppage time of the first half, and it was Cuba through this player called Pedro Bravo, who I've actually heard of, who plays for Midtjylland. Played in like multiple random teams. He actually played for Colombia before this. So apparently Flash Score was wrong about this dude. But Cuba scored, and then they held on. They won 1-0 against Antigua and Barbuda, which away in CONCACAF's never easy. But what the 1-0, really disappointed. So Cuba currently sits in second ahead of Bermuda and tied with Honduras, though Honduras does have an extra game because they had off in the front part of this window. Honduras plays the Cayman Islands on the 7th, and then they play Antigua and Barbuda. Match to still watch out for, obviously, is Cuba and Bermuda on the 10th. That plays at 4 o'clock on the 10th. We might stream that day, like the whole night. So brace yourselves. Madness could ensue in Group A, where Bermuda could make the next round over a national team like Cuba, who I believe have made the World Cup before. Has Cuba made the World Cup before? Cuba made the World Cup in 1938. Yeah, that counts. They made it to the quarterfinals then. Yeah, and they made it to the playoff in 20 something. I don't know. But yeah, weird stuff with Cuba, possibly blowing it to an island more known for tourism. Speaking of tourism, the Bahamas have done absolutely nothing. We're on to Group B next, and it's Costa Rica, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, the Bahamas, as mentioned, and Trinidad and Tobago. The big storyline here was Trinidad and Tobago versus Grenada versus St. Kitts and Nevis. And we opened the window with Grenada beating the Bahamas 6-0, which is very significant because goal difference is very key here. And Grenada suffered one defeat. They lost 3-0 to Costa Rica after drawing Trinidad and Tobago in the opening match. So that will set up tonight, which a match that is about to start, I believe. It starts in 15 minutes, so it'll be going live in the middle of the stream, and it's between St. Kitts and Nevis and Trinidad and Tobago. And why? And you're probably asking yourselves, Robbie, why the hell are you hyping up St. Kitts and Nevis against Trinidad and Tobago? And there's a very good reason for this. The last time these two played, it was a purely dominant performance in 2023 by Trinidad and Tobago in the Gold Cup, in a match that I don't remember, that I don't think it really mattered. a match played in Fort Lauderdale in which Trinidad and Tobago completely dominated from start to finish and won 3-0. The reason I'm hyping this up is because if St. Kitts and Nevis win this match somehow, St. Kitts will be on 6 points, Grenada will be on 4, and Trinidad will also be on 4. Costa Rica have a match at hand, but they're playing the Bahamas, so they'll be on 9 and will qualify for the next round. That sets up a matchup between St. Kitts and Nevis and Grenada, a matchup that will have all of the drama and controversy that you could think of in a CONCACAF match that actually matters. And to add more fuel to the fire, Costa Rica is playing Trinidad. If Trinidad lose, they will have a very tough road to the next round because they then will have to not draw, but beat Costa Rica. Where is this match? I don't know. I mean, it's unbelievable the situation that Trinidad's in here. They'll have to go to Costa Rica and win. That United States can't even do that. Then again, a lot of teams have done what the United States couldn't. St. Kitts and Nevis could do what the United States hasn't done in like multiple years, and it's win at Trinidad. So I'm just saying madness can ensue. But Group B is miraculous. St. Kitts and Nevis taking on Trinidad tonight. That's going to be a showdown for the ages in a group that actually has a lot on the line. Because remember, top 2 make it. So Costa Rica will probably be 1. And then we're going to have a 3-team duel starting tonight that could possibly go down to 2 between Trinidad, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Grenada, with Grenada being on the back foot. Because then they'd have, if Trinidad win, Grenada would have to beat St. Kitts and Nevis by 4 goals or more. So that'll be a very tough road to climb for Grenada. There's one group that's completely settled already for the most part. Group C, Curacao and Haiti have completely dominated this group. Aruba and Barbados played. Someone had to win to stay alive. Neither of them did. A penalty from Leacock and a goal from Lloydens leveled our game at 1. Nothing else happened. So Aruba and Barbados are out. St. Lucia play Curacao tonight. If Curacao gets a point, St. Lucia is done, and Curacao and Haiti are going to go to the next round, as we all predicted. Group D had a very odd result on what would be Tuesday, and it was Montserrat against Belize. Now, you're probably asking yourself, Robbie, why do you care about Montserrat? Well, Montserrat, if you want to know the history of the country, Montserrat is like a very small Caribbean island. And if we look at the culture and the amount of people, can we find the size? How many people are there? An island with about 5,000 people on it. And it was at one point like somewhat covered with, I believe, volcanic ash. Is that what it was? I don't really remember this part. Due to volcanic activity on the island from 1995 to 2010, the team has only played a handful of matches, including the one we saw on Tuesday, in which Montserrat went out and beat Belize, which is unbelievable because Montserrat and Belize both suck, respectfully. And neither of them really wanted to win this. This match was played in Trinidad and Tobago, and it was Montserrat with an early goal from Mark Rogers in the 2nd minute, and Montserrat, which I don't remember the last time they actually won a match in World Cup qualifying. Can we find that, please? They've attempted to qualify for World Cup since 1998 when they were actually became a FIFA member. They have not played in anything notable in the history of CONCACAF, other than Nations League. They were in Nations League B. I did not know that. They've also they never played in the Caribbean Cup. Their most amount of wins against any national team in the world is Anguilla, Barbados, and the Dominican Republic. But that's when the DR sucked. They would lose 6-0 to the DR now. But Montserrat got 3 points. So Montserrat technically has a mathematical chance to do this. Unfortunately for them, they're probably going to get eliminated tonight because Nicaragua plays Guyana. If Nicaragua wins, they will qualify likely for the next round. Actually, they will qualify for the next round. Also, Panama plays Belize. If Panama wins, they'll go to the next round as well, which means both of those teams would be on 9. Guyana and Montserrat on 3. So really, Montserrat's efforts were for naught, but it's really cool to see them win their first competitive match in I don't know how long, honestly. Next groups, we move right along: Jamaica, Guatemala, Dominican Republic, Dominica, and the British Virgin Islands. We started off this window with the Virgins losing to Dominica 3-0, which gave Dominica an outside shot to actually do this. The only annoying part is that their goal difference is -4, and the next lowest one is +2. You could probably see where I'm going with this. Dominica now has to play the Dominican Republic in the Battle of the D's, and that's not even the match we're highlighting, because in a very shocking turn of events, the Dominican Republic have a very outside chance to actually qualify for the next round. They have to go to Guatemala City, which if they draw and Jamaica wins, we could have a situation. Actually, even if Jamaica drop points, they're not dropping points to the Virgin Islands. So if we have a draw, the Dominican Republic has an outside shot to do this. The issue is if Dominican Republic draw their match, they're going to have to beat Dominica by like 6, which they're not. What they're hoping for is that they beat Guatemala and then Jamaica wins as well, which would put 2 teams on 6 and 1 team on 9. The Dominican Republic has to play Dominica, and then Guatemala has to play Jamaica. Guatemala, who are in first, are nowhere near safe. The Dominican Republic could cause problems tonight. I really think that match would be a draw. The Dominican Republic have to go for it. If they don't go for it, that's a problem. If they don't go for it, they don't deserve it. They've conceded 1 goal in 2 matches. Granted, they've played their 1 goal is to Jamaica, so they lost to Jamaica in the opening match due to a goal from I believe it's Shamar. Is it Shamar Nicholson? Yeah, Shamar Nicholson in Kingston. So Jamaica, honestly, have should have this wrapped up. They're playing freaking the British Virgin Islands. If you don't beat the British Virgin Islands 7-0, that's disappointing. No offense to them, but they're not very good. Group F, it could also get really weird. St. Vincent and the Grenadines did keep themselves in it by beating Anguilla 6-0. Anguilla, a country that could lose to spots like Montserrat. So we're not really surprised. Anguilla also has 3 losses with a -18 goal difference. They are the worst team in CONCACAF. So St. Vincent and the Grenadines are in it, but they're really not, because St. Vincent and the Grenadines have to play Puerto Rico, a match that St. Vincent and the Grenadines has to win and have Puerto Rico drop points somewhere else. Puerto Rico does play Suriname tonight at right now, I believe. And we actually can go to see what's going on. And it's 0-0 between Suriname and Puerto Rico. If Puerto Rico draws Suriname, this can make this really weird, because if they draw this match, that does somehow open the door for El Salvador to backdoor a way into this to the next round, because El Salvador is playing Anguilla. You could probably tell where I'm going with this. El Salvador with a win would be on 7. Suriname with a draw against Puerto Rico would be on 7, and Puerto Rico would be on 5. That would put El Salvador in a very weird position, because then there would be a winner-take-all game in San Salvador between El Salvador and Suriname, which I'm here for that, honestly. Puerto Rico then plays St. Vincent and the Grenadines. If they lose that game, they don't deserve it. I think someone has to score in this match. I don't care who it is. Someone has to score. Someone has to go for it. And we just found out a very odd result that we're going to talk about in the next segment, or one of the later segments that has to do in South America. So CONCACAF is putting on a clinic. Suriname obviously should be going through. They've been dominant in their first 2 matches. They beat St. Vincent and the Grenadines 4-1 and beat Anguilla 4-0. So 2 good wins for the Suriname national team, a national team that is on the rise in CONCACAF. They just have to go out and probably get a point against probably both Puerto Rico and El Salvador, and they're fine. The big story and the biggest headline to watch out for, obviously, is Trinidad and Tobago against St. Kitts and Nevis. Why is it not that? I don't know. No one's really talking about it. And that's why I do streams like this, so you guys understand why St. Kitts and Nevis could actually make the World Cup, because they have to actually go out and win a match against Trinidad and Tobago. So when was the last time we just searched this up. When was the last time they lost to St. Kitts and Nevis? Do we have a record between these two? Hold on. Stay with me here, chat. We're gonna look do some history. We're gonna find out when was the last time they lost to St. Kitts and Nevis. Well, wasn't it like a few years, like semi recently though? The one with St. Kitts and Nevis. Because I don't remember the last time these two played in a qualifier. I'll be honest. St. Kitts and Nevis have lost the last three. Head to head, the last time. Wow, we gotta go a long way. St. Kitts and Nevis have not won between these two in this century. What an opportunity for St. Kitts and Nevis. Though in 2009, they played a 3-2 showdown. That was the closest match other than a 1-0. St. Kitts and Nevis playing in 2009 at home against Trinidad and Tobago. Like I said, big opportunities tonight for both of them. Trinidad should win, but who knows? It's CONCACAF World Cup qualifying, and that's what we're here for. So tonight, a lot of good matches in CONCACAF. There's a big, like I said, big doubleheader. Trinidad and Tobago against St. Kitts and Nevis, and then Guatemala against the Dominican Republic. Two good matches tonight. And the big matchup earlier today was Cuba beating Antigua and Barbuda because they got a goal. Antigua and Barbuda got a red card, and that was that. Next continent, we are going to the south into South America, and we are going to CONMEBOL next. I know we are not going in alphabetical order. Please be quiet. I don't care. And we're going to the area with the next biggest headline, which is a country I did not expect to be here at all. And that country is Paraguay. Paraguay, who scored like 2 goals in their first like 9 matches. They were in a very weird position. Because if you look at, we got to find this. Where's Paraguay? Where are they? We got to talk about this. Paraguay yesterday went out and won again. Paraguay beat Uruguay 2-0. A Paraguayan national team results. We're going to look at their recent results in World Cup qualifying. It started for them a ton of losses and draws, and we thought they were going to be in serious trouble. You open up with a draw against Peru. They then lose to Venezuela, Argentina. By the way, both 1-0. They did not score a goal in qualifying until match week 4 when they beat Bolivia. They then drew Chile and then lost to Colombia. So through the first 6 matches, they scored how many goals? Once? They scored 1 goal in 6 matches. You could probably tell where I'm going with this. Paraguay then went out and lost to Colombia. This is actually not World Cup qualifying. That's I don't know what this is. What the fuck is this? Oh, it was the I forgot this happened. Copa America, right? It just didn't list it as Copa America. We then continue with qualifying with draws against Uruguay and Ecuador while they beat Brazil. This is where the weirdness began. It was those 3 matches. Then they beat Venezuela, beat Argentina, drew Bolivia, which is not the worst results, saying with where it is. Then they beat Chile, drew Colombia, and then this afternoon, yesterday afternoon, beat Uruguay and are now in a golden position to qualify at the end of this current window, which is actually next week. Uruguay, rather, dropped to 5th. Paraguay are 3rd. Granted, 2nd to 6th is separated by 4 points, and one of those teams hasn't played a match this window yet, and that's Colombia, who I believe are at 0-0. Colombia drew Peru. What the fuck did they do? Colombia drew Peru, so Colombia's on 21. Peru's on 11, so they're essentially out of it with how many games there are left, which sets up our duel, we'll talk about in a second, between Venezuela and Bolivia. Paraguay, though, which is our focus, are in 3rd after scoring 2 goals in like their first 2 months. What was it? 1 goal in their first 6 matches. They've now gone on to score 12 in their following 9, which is still horrible, by the way. But when you look for how little some teams have scored in this qualifying, Ecuador is on 13. Those are the lowest scoring teams in qualifying. They're 2nd and 3rd. I don't know how to feel about that because Ecuador and Paraguay are on 24 points in South American qualifying, and they've scored 13 goals apiece. That's terrible. Brazil's in 4th. They're on 20 goals and 22 points. The issue with Brazil is that they are refusing to win matches they should totally dominate, and they went out and drew Ecuador, which is honestly not the worst result. Ecuador has been really good, but they just don't lose. When was the last time Ecuador lost? I don't know. It's not loading. So Ecuador hasn't lost in a cool minute. They're actually coming off back-to-back nil-nil draws technically because they drew Chile. So they're unbeaten in their last three. They beat Venezuela. They drew Chile, which is terrible, and then they drew Brazil. Brazil, who have continued to disappoint. Last three matches for them, they beat Colombia barely, 99th minute winner from Vinicius Jr. They then lost to Argentina 4-1 after going behind off the jump, and they drew Ecuador, and then have to play Paraguay, which if someone wins that game, they will probably qualify for the World Cup, which is pretty freaking awesome, especially since Paraguay haven't been here in a minute. The last time Paraguay was in the World Cup, was I even born yet? I was born in 2004. Were they in the World Cup? They made it in 2010. I actually didn't know they made it in 2010. They made it for 4 consecutive tournaments, including a round of 16 appearances in 98 and 2002. They then played in 2006, got eliminated in the group stage, and then played in 2010 in South Africa and lost in the quarterfinals. They have not qualified since, and they are now in a situation where they can absolutely qualify because they hit the subscribe button. So you guys should do that too. The Paraguayan national team playing Brazil in a match that if they win, they will qualify for is nuts. But the matchup everyone was watching out for today, actually, let's go to the other matches. Argentina beat Chile. We talk about Paraguay. Let's talk about Venezuela and Bolivia. A situation where Venezuela and Bolivia were literally separated going into today by 1 point. The situation was that Venezuela was the home side. Bolivia are the worst defense in the Western Hemisphere. That should actually be something. They've conceded 30 goals in 14 matches, which you can't even ask Southampton to do that in the Prem if they tried. The big problem for Bolivia is that their road record is also terrible. I don't know how many road wins do they have. Can I find that on here? No, sick. All right, so if we're looking at the current live standings, Venezuela is in the intercontinental playoff spot, which the top 6 go through to the automatically, and then the team in 7th goes to the World Cup intercontinental playoffs. Venezuela was separated by 1 point with Bolivia going into tonight, with a match between these two looming large. And it started by the most Bolivian way possible, conceding an own goal, which feels like they've done that like a million times this go around. They then conceded a goal to this guy named Salomon Rondon, who plays for Pachuca, and it's 2-0, and then Venezuela is probably winning this. So that means Bolivia, with 3 matches to go, are on the back foot. They actually play Chile next, so they're not totally out of it. But they're going to need Venezuela to lose at Uruguay to have a chance. If Venezuela gets a point at Uruguay, it'll be 2 in Venezuela, and Bolivia beats Chile. It's going to be a 2-point gap, but Bolivia, I believe, has to play. Don't they have another difficult team? They have to play Colombia and Brazil, and Venezuela plays Brazil and Uruguay, or Uruguay, Colombia. I don't remember, but it's like 2 big teams. So these two playing each other, and one of them actually coming out with a win is very significant to World Cup qualifying with where we are. Big result right now for Venezuela. They've deserved to win this match too, which is massive for them. A win for Venezuela will probably send them to the playoff and has them only 3 points behind 6th place Colombia. Yeah, Colombia are not safe. Neither is Uruguay. And Uruguay play Venezuela, which is the match of next window. Because if Uruguay win, that puts them and Colombia 1 step towards safety. The issue for Colombia, they have to play Argentina next. Uruguay, Colombia, Venezuela, and Bolivia are going to be battling for the last 2.5 spots. Bolivia are going to essentially be out of it, which means we're going to see 3 teams battling for 2.5 spots unless Bolivia actually goes out and beats Chile again. So weirdness all around South America right now. But yeah, Peru is playing Ecuador. Peru's out of it already pretty much. Brazil is playing Paraguay. Then we have Venezuela, Uruguay. We already talked about that match. Bolivia is playing Chile. It's going to be absolute insanity. And I cannot wait for next week's show to tell you guys what happened. We had also have multiple other matches during this live stream begin, including our coveted St. Kitts and Nevis and Trinidad match. Also, Curacao against St. Lucia also began as well. The next federation we are going to is Asia, and we had multiple teams qualify for the World Cup in Asia, which is pretty freaking awesome. You're probably asking why I didn't want to start with this, because there's matches going on, and I was going to talk about the matches that are currently in progress. I am sorry. This is also where most of my viewers are from, is from North America. And we'll start with Group A, and the biggest story from there was who's going to qualify in that second spot. It was a two-way battle between Uzbekistan and the United Arab Emirates, because Iran essentially qualified already. So the problem was that Uzbekistan and the UAE played each other yesterday, or rather on Thursday when this video came out. When this video on June 5th, the UAE played Uzbekistan in the UAE in Abu Dhabi, and it was a match that had absolutely nothing occur. A 0-0 draw for Uzbekistan, which sends them to their first ever World Cup. Hell yeah, man. I'm all for this. Uzbekistan are like really good, but like in recent, hold on, let's pull this up. So Uzbekistan in recent like qualifying cycles were that one country that were like right on the doorstep of qualifying for the final round and kept blowing it somehow, which is pretty funny. But so let's look at the history. So this is their first time they're ever going to the World Cup. Remember, if you don't know history, the history of Uzbekistan from 1930 to 1990, when the World Cup was created, they were part of the Soviet Union, so they could not participate by themselves. They then were not a FIFA member in 1994, and right after that World Cup, they became a FIFA member, and it started World Cup qualifying in 1998. They did not qualify for any of the most recent tournaments, including a World Cup qualifying in 2022, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they missed out on the final like main group stage round by like 1 point or something. I don't really remember, but yeah, that's the story of Uzbekistan recently. If we look at what they've done in the Asian Cup this year, last time they made it to the quarterfinals. They made it to the round of 16, the tournament before that. So they're actually pretty competent. They actually, when they've made the Asian Cup, they have not missed the knockouts since 2004. They've made every single one since 96. They have not missed the knockouts since 2004, and I've made it to the quarterfinals all but once since, like I said, 2004. So they're a country that can cause problems. They have players that you may not have heard of, but here's my favorite part. They've played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They've played 12 matches since the middle of last year. They've lost one of them, and it was at Qatar, which is not the worst thing in the world. But they've pulled out wins over in this time frame against Turkmenistan, North Korea, Kyrgyzstan, the United Arab Emirates, who they beat the first time in Kashnet. They beat North Korea again. They beat Kyrgyzstan again, and then they've drawn countries like Iran, the UAE, Jordan, Iran again, and Iran again. How they were with Iran for multiple rounds. That's hilarious. And they'll finish off with Qatar in a match that doesn't matter. So Uzbekistan, for the first time in their history, are going to the World Cup. A country that used to be part of the Soviet Union, started World Cup qualifying in 1998, are going to the tournament for the first time. And the best part is they're not even the only debutante to come out of Asia. By the way, UAE and Qatar are going to the fourth round. So they'll go to the next round with a chance to qualify in the next round. Because Group B, we had a little bit of weird stuff happen as well. See, South Korea was nowhere near safe, and they actually had to go out and grab a result after drawing Oman and Jordan in the previous round. So naturally, they go out and have to play Iraq, a team that has a lot of quality. Let's look at some players. There is a player that I know of as like one of the best strikers, Ayman Hussein, who's a complete baller, and he is actually really good. They have players on Ipswich, in the Saudi League, in Italy, Ali Jassim's in Como, which is now going to the first division. They have players who've played in Sweden, Norway, so that's weird. Is that Thailand? Okay. Victoria, this is so random. But Iraq actually had to like go out and do something. So naturally they go out and lose to South Korea 2-0, which puts South Korea back in the World Cup, a South Korean side that has not missed the World Cup in a very, very long time. They've been in every World Cup since 1986, which is fairly respectable, including a fourth place finish in 2002. Believe that was the last time a non-Europe, like Europe or South American member finished in like the top four, not named Morocco. Additionally, the next weird result was the situation at the bottom because we're going to talk about Jordan last. It was between Palestine and Kuwait, a situation where if someone won that match, particularly Palestine, they would have a chance to still make the fourth round. All they have to do is win again on the last day, which we will have a decider for that final spot on the 10th. And that match will be between Palestine, who beat Kuwait, a Kuwait team that have drawn 5 times, which is actually more respectable than you think. Kuwait's terrible, and they went through to this round by going through India in that controversy and whatever in that group with Qatar. But regardless, Kuwait played Palestine. Palestine won, which fair play to them. Palestine won 2-0 in Kuwait City, which is a very more difficult place to play in than you think. So Kuwait is done. The weird part now is that Palestine needed Oman to lose by multiple goals to Jordan to give them an actual fighting chance. And that they did. Jordan goes out to Oman in Muscat and wins 3-0. So Jordan, a team I didn't even have going to the fourth round, I think, for the first time in their history, a country that just made it to the final of the Asian Cup, is going to the World Cup for the first time in their history. Also, applause to them. Like, that's ridiculous. A Jordanian national team that just made it to the finals of the Asian Cup for the first time ever. Like, if you look at their Asian Cup history, the farthest they made prior to that run in 23 was a quarterfinals run in 2011. A country that's has made it to 3 of the last 4 knockout stages in the Asian Cup and 5 of the last 6. 4 of the last 6, rather, because they didn't qualify in 07. They're a nation on the rise in the Jordanian national team. One, they made it really far in qualifying to begin with, but they could score goals, man. They have Hamza Dardur, I think is how you say it, who's 33 goals and 116 caps. Musa Al-Tamari, who I actually know who that is, 23 goals and 79 caps. He's a baller. Yassan Al-Naiman, who has 22 goals and 56. He's probably one of their best goal scorers. And Ali Owan, another player who scored 18 goals in 5 years, not even 5 years playing for the national team with 52 caps. This team has some true ballers and some true veterans. They have 2 of the 10 most capped players currently on their national team. This team is going to go to the World Cup and want to cause damage. They've only lost twice in like 15 matches, and those were against South Korea and Saudi Arabia. And only one of them was in a match that matters. This Jordanian team could cause problems. I think Uzbekistan is significantly better than them. If you ask them to like play a match right now, I think Uzbekistan would win. But in tournaments, seems like the Jordanians have it down. So Jordan are a team on the to watch out for, and they could also give a lot of help to Oman and Palestine, because if Iraq loses, I think Iraq is probably safe because I think Iraq is safe because a draw would help no one. Palestine winning would drop Iraq to 4th. So Iraq is going to the next round. What about the decider between Oman and Palestine on Tuesday, which should be absolutely crazy. And then we have Group C. And this group is essentially decided already because the match we all had to watch out for, by the way, the group is Australia, Japan, Indonesia, China, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia. And Japan are already through. We knew that already. And the situation was between 2 teams, mainly Australia and Saudi. If Australia lose to Japan, we would have had a decider for the second automatic qualifying spot in the group. Unfortunately, for the narrative, we will not have that unless Australia lose by 5 or more goals. Australia beats Japan and is 90 minutes away from going to a World Cup. A match in Perth that had all of the drama and glory you would expect. Tears in fans' eyes and from Australian fans from around the world watched Australia beat Japan 1-0. When was the last time they beat Japan? I don't even know. And by the way, Australia will be going to their 6th consecutive World Cup. A country that made their first knockout appearance since 2006 will be going to the World Cup for only their 7th time in history. Because prior to that run that began in 2006, they made it once in 1974 and got their butt kicked. A country that started World Cup qualifying in 1966. They've made the World Cup once before 2006. They are now making it for their 6th consecutive time, and they will be heading to the United States, barring a blowout loss. And we just got a big goal update for those of you wanting to pay attention. We'll go to that in a second. But yeah, Australia are likely going to the World Cup. Saudi Arabia likely going to the playoff. They play each other on the 10th. Dramatic, weird things can still happen. Also, what could happen is that Indonesia can finish ahead of Saudi Arabia in this group. Indonesia is going to the next round. Indonesia went out and beat China. Fair play to them. So Indonesia is going to the 4th round. And this is I think this is the farthest they've ever gone. When was the last time they made it this far? They did not. So they started They actually have made the World Cup once as the Dutch East Indies in 1938. But as Indonesia, they withdrew in 1950, did not enter in 54, withdrew during qualification in 58, withdrew in 62, did not enter in 1966 or 1970, obviously due to the conflicts in the region. They did not qualify from 74 to 2014. They were disqualified due to a FIFA suspension, which I didn't even know happened. They did not qualify in 2022. And why was Indonesia disqualified? Does anyone know this? Like, you can write in the chat, because I haven't been paying attention to the chat today. Indonesia DQ'd from World Cup 2018. What did they do? Government meddling. Fair enough. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. So yeah, we'll have a lot of weird stuff because Indonesia is going to their farthest. This is like the farthest they've ever gone in World Cup qualifying, I think. A nation that has lost to China and we're off to a very slow start, but in a very compact group from start to finish. Indonesia will be going to the 4th round, which is another group stage with just 3 teams, and we'll talk about it at the end of this month. Additionally, we do have some breaking news. We have some goals to talk about. Big up the goals. I wish I had a soundboard because we'd be hyping that up. Suriname, late on, has scored against Puerto Rico. Suriname, 79th minute goal from Montnor, which now puts a very unlikely scenario with Puerto Rico now having to have El Salvador lose to lose to Anguilla. Puerto Rico are now on the back foot because they are losing to Suriname. That's terrible. I feel horrible for them. We also have a goal in our hype match as Trinidad have scored courtesy of Garcia in the 9th. Levy Garcia plays for Spartak Moscow, has scored. So that means Trinidad is leading at home against St. Kitts and Nevis again, which really unfortunate for them. Additionally, we do have a match that is final. Venezuela has beaten Bolivia. So big ups to Venezuela. They're now 4 points clear with not many matches to go. Curacao is currently drawing St. Lucia. I don't know how that's possible. But yeah, weird stuff all the way around. We'll talk about the Nations League last because that's not really what we're talking about today. And we're going to UEFA World Cup qualifying, the biggest and shortest World Cup qualifying cycle is UEFA. We had matches kick off yesterday. I think 2 days ago. When did matches start for this? Matches began today. I'm reading the wrong script. And will begin not in Group A because they haven't started yet because of the Nations League. We are going to start in Group G today. And we were given a treat out in actually they have not played yet, naturally. Only three groups played today. I thought it was 5. I was wrong. 3 groups played today, and we're going to get some of the matches out of the way now. And we're starting at the group at the bottom, and that is Group L. So take the L is what some of the teams will be saying, and that is going to begin with Croatia, who have beaten Gibraltar 7-0. Why? I don't know. I got nothing on that one for you guys. Maybe it's because Gibraltar didn't hit the subscribe button. Maybe because they weren't too attacking. I don't know. Gibraltar scored 1 goal in 14 matches. Please tell me they play like the Faroe Islands next, which would be like really funny. Their next match is against. Well, they lost. Oh no, they play Faroe Islands next. Excellent. Faroe Islands has to play Gibraltar and Croatia. That's really unfortunate for them. But Faroe Islands or not, I mean, that's not my point. Croatia beats Gibraltar 7-0. Big matchup towards the top was Czechia against Montenegro. A Montenegro team that's actually has some reputation. They're actually very difficult to play against. But an EAFC Eternal loan player, Adam Hlozek, if you know, you know that you could pick him up for loan for nothing. Who's at Hoffenheim, by the way. He scored the opener, and then the second goal was scored by a dude named Sadalek, I think. They had they had a goal disallowed, and it was Patrick Schick. That's who it is. Sadalek came on as a sub. I thought he scored. They had a goal disallowed like immediately afterwards, and it was Patrick Schick who scored to give Czechia a respectable 2-0 win. And that puts Czechia at the top of a group with Croatia. And granted, Croatia has 2 matches in hand against them. So Croatia plays Czechia next in a match that will have all the drama that you could ask for, which is exactly what we're hoping for in this window. Montenegro, I don't think plays again. They don't play again until September in terms of World Cup qualifying. After losing to Czechia, their next match is against Czechia again. Sure. After beating the Faroe Islands and Gibraltar, they now have to play Czechia twice before having to go play Croatia twice, the Faroe Islands, and Gibraltar again. This group could get a little bit spicy, especially if Montenegro can actually go out and beat Czechia at home. That would make this really interesting. By the way, of course, we have the next major match being Faroe Islands and Gibraltar, which is going to be awesome. Next match we have to talk about is the group with Israel. Israel played again in World Cup qualifying. They went behind against Estonia, and they went out and won 3-1 on the road in Estonia. So if you like espresso macchiato or blown leads, you get both with Estonia. If you know about Eurovision, you know, as Estonia go out and lose for the second time after losses against, actually, they've lost to Israel twice. That's amazing. They played Israel twice in 3 matches because of the schedule with Italy being in like World and the Nations League. Estonia have lost to Israel twice. Israel are second because of like Italy not playing matches. Norway is the top of this group. We'll go to them in a minute. And Moldova are bottom. Yeah, speaking of Italy, what happened to them? You know, they just they lost in the Nations League. You know, they open with Norway. It can't get any worse for them, right? It got worse. It got really bad for them. They went out and lost 3-0 on the road to Norway, a Norwegian team that this is a great question. When was the last time they were in the World Cup? The last time they were in the World Cup was 1998 when they got eliminated in the round of 16 in a World Cup hosted by France. They've actually did play in the American World Cup, in the World Cup hosted by America in 98. So that's in 94. So that could, I mean, that's maybe why they're trying. I don't know. Sorloth, Nusa, and Erling Haaland score 3 first-half goals. Nothing else really happened. Norway wins 3-0 and are top of the group, and they have conceded only twice in 3 matches while scoring 12 goals, while beating no, Moldova, Israel, and Italy to start the qualifying. Their next match is against Estonia, who they will probably destroy to Kingdom Come. Israel's next match is against Moldova, but they don't play again in this window. Italy are in a very peculiar spot. They play Moldova in a couple of days. So they play Moldova on Sunday. So revenge opportunity come. They play on the 8th. So you can tell me when that is. But yeah, Italy, very weird spot for them because they have to go out and win a lot of matches. Granted, they are 2 matches in hand, but they do not control their destiny to win the automatic qualifying spot. The one other group that was in action today was group, what letter is it? He said, I don't have my notes anymore. I didn't write notes on the UEFA one because it happened today. It's Group J, a group with Liechtenstein, of course, being the headliner, Kazakhstan, North Macedonia, Wales, and a nation called Belgium, I think we've never heard of before. Speaking of Belgium, I mean, they're opening with North Macedonia. If you know, do we know the history of North Macedonia World Cup qualifying recently? They were for those who don't remember, they were the team that eliminated Italy from the last one. And they opened up with Belgium, which is really unfortunate because I wish they got an easier group so they can actually have like a chance to make it. Because I mean, it's a meme if they make it, it's a meme if they don't, really. We just got a penalty. Trinidad and Tobago just got a well, that's unfortunate. That game just ended already. Terrible news. Um the situation right now, let's go back to our headline. Yeah, I mean, it couldn't get worse for North Macedonia. They open with Belgium at home. What could possibly go wrong for Belgium? They're probably going to win, right? Wales were going to be Liechtenstein. They did, which means Belgium has to beat North Macedonia. And they didn't. North Macedonia went behind inside of 30 minutes with a goal from a guy I'm not going to try pronouncing. And then naturally, North Macedonia scored in the 86th minute. Belgium are a mess. Let's roast some people. Let's do it. De Bruyne on a 6.9, Sells on a 6.4, Lukaku 6.3, Doku 6.6. They all did nothing. A left back was the one who scored for North Macedonia to give them a major point, and North Macedonia remain in second after drawing Wales and Belgium, and they won their opener with Liechtenstein, which great name. They now have to go on the road to Kazakhstan, which I mean, Kazakhstan could cause problems. I mean, they lost to Wales on the road, and they've actually were on the road twice, so they're playing their home opener in World Cup qualifying for this cycle. Well, the Kazakhstan team that actually I believe made the playoff last time. They're a team with still a little bit of quality. While they're really known for tennis players in recent years, Kazakhstan could still cause some legitimate issues, and that might be represented with when North Macedonia plays Kazakhstan in a couple of days. Belgium have to play Wales, a Wales team that at one point, were going to look like they're going to drop points to Liechtenstein. Unfortunately, cooler heads prevailed, and Wales won 3-0. Liechtenstein, which by the way are the worst national team in the world because they've lost to San Marino recently, they did not have a shot at all. I did not know this. There's no way. It was 26 shots to nil. Liechtenstein did not have a shot. Did we know this? No one told me it was 0 shots. I also would not have ripped into them. Oh my lord. There's no way Liechtenstein had no shots at all. That's insane. Yeah, Wales are in a good spot to play against Belgium. Oh, we have a goal in one of our other matches. St. Kitts and Nevis have done it. A missed goal. Okay, so Trinidad just missed their penalty, and St. Kitts and Nevis on the counter have scored. It is now Trinidad and Tobago 1, St. Kitts and Nevis 1. I was about to go right to my friend that it's 2-0 and it's over. St. Kitts and Nevis are in it. Puerto Rico has lost against Suriname. I don't know what the hell Curacao is doing. It's 0-0. And Venezuela, fair play to them. They went out and beat Bolivia. Fair play to them. So yeah, absolutely no. And we just had another goal. We just had another goal. Trinidad have scored again. So they had goals in the 9th minute, and then right when I was talking, goals in the 27th, and now the 29th, and Trinidad are immediately back in the lead. Two goals inside of 3 minutes, one for either team, and St. Kitts and Nevis are now losing again to Trinidad and Tobago. And if we look at where the group is currently, that will likely put St. Kitts and Nevis in a terrible spot in World Cup qualifying. But if you know how this game could likely go, this game is only getting started. And that's what we're here for. So World Cup qualifying is madness. It's back, and we have a lot of matches that we're even reacting to live, and that's why you guys, I wish you were here on stream. I'm just writing to my friend something. While I'm typing to texting my friend, you guys can go like the stream, subscribe, do those normal YouTube things. So yeah, St. Kitts and Nevis, we'll leave them for now because we're going to the UEFA Nations League. Yes, we're going to briefly go over this. Portugal played Germany. It was Portugal against Germany and Spain against France. That's where we were in the UEFA Nations League. And Portugal went behind against the Germans, the Germany team that was hosting the entire rest of the event. Germany go ahead, Portugal go behind. And then it's Conceição and then Cristiano Ronaldo, naturally, who goes out and storms the Germans. Portugal are going to the UEFA Nations League final. They are going to play Spain, who played a dramatic thriller against France, in which Spain went 5-1 up, and then France almost came back. It was 4-0 at one point in favor of Spain. And I was not truly sure if I understood what I was watching. Then Mbappe scored, Yamal scored twice. It was like the most perfect game ever. 9 goals at the MPH Arena in Stuttgart. Spain wins 5-4. They're going to play a final against Portugal on Sunday, which is going to be complete madness, which, again, all here for, by the way. France are playing Germany in a third-place playoff in a game that doesn't matter. I'm picking Germany to win because it's Germany. In the final, I'm picking Spain to beat Portugal in the final of the Nations League. Spain are just too good. They are a better team right now. They just beat one of the best national teams in the world in France. So I don't know how the rest of it's going to go. But like this tournament has, again, brought dramatics that I would not have expected. Have Portugal ever won this? Stupid question. Have they ever won this? They won the inaugural tournament in 2018-19. They then did not qualify for this playoff round since 2019, then qualify for their first final since 2019. So, first final for Portugal in a while, and really anything, honestly. Of course, they'll be in the next couple of World Cups, and we'll see how that's going to go. Can Ronaldo finally win another trophy? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Ladies and gentlemen, that is where today's show will conclude. Thank you guys so much for watching. A pleasure to have you all join me on stream just for the little over an hour that the stream was today. I kept it a little bit short and brief with some sections. That way we can just move it along. We will review a little bit of this on Tuesday, and then next week we're going to, on this show, date of the show, it will either be Thursday or Friday, and then we will predict the entirety and preview the entirety of the Club World Cup and the CONCACAF Gold Cup. Long stream next week. Hope to see you guys there. Once again, I'm Robbie Basil saying so long. By the way, check out Morris Elite for a doubleheader tomorrow. I'll be on the call for both. I'll see you guys later.